Good afternoon, as of the time right now. Thank you, Mr. Clayton, for giving us the opportunity to, you know, resurface all the knowledge we've learned throughout the course. And I'll be taking you and myself through what I've learned so far in this course. So here it goes. Exploring sociology on masculinity and gender through Cul352. So the first thing first, what it was like for me to be learning about gender and masculinity in a deep sense as an accounting student, while I should be learning about numbers. So to be honest, I was just looking for a general course to add in my requirements, but I was going through deeply with all the course, whichever piqued my interest, and this was the course. Sociologies of men and masculinities. It was a very new topic for me. Not much new, but I wanted to learn in deep because I'm open to learning about anything, as long as it piques my interest, is educational and might help me in the future or just for general knowledge. So yeah, that is why I picked the course in first, and it was one of the best decisions so far this year, and I'm very glad I could enroll in this course. So the first part was truly understanding gender. So before I took this course, before we went in deep about everything, for me, gender was just assigned sex at birth. Oh, because around me, I've heard people around me I've seen people around me have babies, and people asking about the gender, they'll be like, oh, what's the gender of the baby? Oh, it's a boy, it's a girl. But you cannot just truly define gender of a baby when it's still a baby and cannot take decisions for itself. You cannot predict someone else's gender just like that. Might be a strong opinion, but anyways, so what I learned is gender is an individual's feeling of maleness or femaleness, aka gender identity. So does an individual feel more manly or more like a female? What is it? What's their gender identity? Is their gender identity equals gender? That is what I learned in the first place. And it was a great start because I was not clear about it. So sex and gender, they are equivalent terms, related concept, but not the same. And it was very much clear in the class when we studied from the gender-bred person. So gender identity is the womanness or manness of a person. Gender expression is how they dress up, how they present themselves to others. Are they more feminine? Are they more masculine? Personally speaking, I like to do both. I dress up feminine, sometimes I feel feminine, sometimes I feel masculine, like a tomboy. I want to dress up like a man sometimes. Nothing wrong with that. And the other thing, your biological sex, your femaleness and your maleness. What is which reproductive organ do you have? That is what determines your biological sex. And being romantically or sexually attracted to the other person. We can be attracted to anybody. Doesn't matter if it's a male or a female. Um, it's not in your gender to, determine that. Um, so, how is gender constructed by society? Because we have seen a lot throughout the history. We've read a lot about throughout the history about gender, how men used to act in the past, how they act in the present, how they might be acting in the future. The same with females. But what role does society have to play in gender and its construction? Let's see through that. So because there are different theories and perspectives that tell us about it, that tell us about gender, that show how gender is constructed and viewed and influenced. So the course provided many important insights about these various theories and perspectives that very much challenged my perspective and my understanding of gender. Um, So from biological theories, I learned about how gender is determined by the body, your hormones in your, your brain. A similar thing with psychological theory. It's about how it mentally, you know, the psychological feeling of your maleness or femaleness, learning one's emotions and feelings about genders. Whereas the cultural theories are, they contain a larger amount, a larger area of people, how they're influencing you about the gender norms, the gender identity. So for me, where I come from Nepal. It's mostly run by patriarchy. So it is a perfect example for the hegemonic masculinity to thrive, because from what I grew up seeing, men had to be financially stable. You have to have a lot of money. You have to be strong. You have to be able to build houses. You have to be arrogant. Because since patriarchy, men are allowed to do anything, almost everything, and never questioned. So I used to always question myself, what are the young boys going to do when they grow up into a man? Are they going to act so reckless? Because I don't want my little cousin brother, who is 3 years old, to be most of the men that I see around me. I do not want him to be aggressive. I do not want him to be trying to be dominant. I want him to be a polite person, a respectable citizen who knows what he wants, who is free to be true to himself, and who's doing good good deeds. That is all I want. And it made me realize that it's the society that plays the most important role in the construction of one's gender. Because as a social person, you at some point we all try to fit in, and that might be a problem. So in during our lectures, Mr. Clayton walked us through a lot of amazing facts. I had no idea about the Waka Wahine Maoris. I did know about the Maoris of the New Zealand, but I did not know that the men perform the gender roles of the women too. That they represent that they presented themselves as women. But it was a great general knowledge fact for me. And one of the most amazing things for me to learn was about the two-spirit people. So it's basically an umbrella term for used by the indigenous North American cultures to describe an individual embodying both qualities of both genders, a man or a woman, both of them. So it was very good to learn. So feminization of Asian men throughout history. While we were studying about men throughout history, feminization of Asian women was very much, potential to learn, and it was potential to come through, because we've all seen that they're still feminized, and we need to learn when it started, how it started. Because speaking for myself, I had no idea. As a musical person, I listen to all kinds of music, but it actually struck a curiosity in me when I started, comparing the two videos from side to side. Because when I was watching a music video made in the Hollywood, English music videos, and the music videos from K-pop industry, Korean pop, K industry, or the Japanese industry, Chinese, does not matter, any Asian industry, but mostly the East Asian industry, anyone could see the vast difference on the appearance and everything. When I look at the English music or the Hollywood music, the music is good, everything is fine, but they also, and performers and artists are also seen wearing makeup, a little touch up, to look good in the music videos. But what I do not see in the music videos and the makeup is bold eyeliners or blush on their cheeks, or even a little lipstick, which is considered feminine in the Hollywood or the English music industry. They do not do that. But when I compare it to the Asian music industry, it's clear. The difference is clear. I can see the male performers wearing soft pastel pink colors for outfits. They are doing their makeup in a feminine way, according to according to Hollywood and the different culture, a culture different from them. They can be seen wearing eyeliners. It could be bold, it could be subtle. They're seen wearing blush on their cheeks to highlight their cheeks. Little lipstick doesn't hurt, and earrings too. They could be petite and small. They could be dazzling and big. So the difference is very clear when you look at them side by side. So let's see what how it started. So what I learned from the class in the lecture is, so it basically started many years ago when Chinese immigrants started, migrating to the United States. And when there were a lot of them, the Chinese immigrant population was rising. The United States of America imposed a tax on their migration. So if you were to bring your spouse or your partner, you would have to pay a huge amount of tax, an extra tax, which was not affordable for everybody. They were immigrants coming in for a reason. Nobody had that sort of money. The people who did, they could bring their spouse, but most of the people who didn't, they had to come in alone. So they had to work for themselves alone. So they started cooking, they started doing their laundry, they started cleaning their houses, they even started working as waiters or waiters in the restaurants, which was considered very feminine according to the American culture and norms. And that's how the feminization started. That's how they started viewing East Asian, Asian men, Asian men in general as feminine because, oh, look, he's doing his laundry. Isn't that a woman's job? It is. He is feminine. That's how it started. But we can let this be a lesson for our lack of knowledge on such topics and start to have more open thoughts, open mind about masculinity and gender because it is not defined by few norms or a rigid vocabulary definition that is still prevalent to this date. And so learning via films, this part is very interesting to me because visual and video and audio in learning is amazing because our brain learns more like that. Personally, I love learning through films and documentaries. I feel like I understand more and I am there in the picture. I can see what's happening, gives me more knowledge. So one of the documentaries or films that caught my attention was Ervin Goffman's The Codes of Gender, because this because this film shows his work is about how advertising game is very influential and still prevalent in shaping societal norms about masculinity, certain gender roles, because as it is portrayed in the popular social media. And this led to the discussions of hegemonic masculinity because we ever see, all it was there to see in the past and still in the present is the hegemonic masculinity where women are treats for men to win. They are prizes for men to achieve. And beer is their water. The advertising of all the wrong things, conspiring it as strong masculinity, hegemonic masculinity, is wild. Um, and that's what we learn in Act Like a Man box, which I'll be walking you through. So masculinity was and still is all about being aggressive, being dominant, being rich, being basically emotionless and whatnot. And I feel like this was very much amazingly presented in the codes of gender because gender shouldn't be having rules, it shouldn't be having codes and norms. It's a part of our individuality. It's a part of who we are. It's just gender. It shouldn't have rules and responsibilities. Um, and so, what does it actually mean to be a man? What is manhood? Manhood is basically what it means to be a man. So is a femalehood what it means to be a female. So similarly, we can one can perform their masculinity to show their manhood, to present their manhood. So what does it mean to be a man according to the society? You have to be strong. You have to be able to build houses. You have to be able to lift elephants. You need to be strong and athletic. You need to love almost every sports on earth, even if you're not interested. You have to like it because you are a man. And that's what social media, society has always portrayed men in. They are athletic. And you have to be basically emotionless because people would rather choose a, you know, suppressed, depressed, um, very anger infused person over a person who is true, gentle, and vulnerable. Society does not want that in a man. That's what I've found so far, seen so far, and that is very sad. And the other thing is economically stable. When a man is not rich, you do not see him getting a lot of women, because women also have this mindset now because the society has, infused it in their brains that if a man is not rich, you are never going to be happy. He is not going to be able to afford your things that you need to live a happy life. Rather than telling a woman to work for her dreams, support their partners, get rich together, a man has to be just automatically rich to get women's and be successful. And so many other features defining what a manhood is. They're still prevalent and practiced by society for ages. So, talking about sports, talking about being uh, active, athletic, active and athletic, we can see masculinity through sports because it is multidimensional, but it can also be an issue for far possible consequences as social expectations are raised high, and it challenges the individual personality, an individual's identity as a person. Because as a man, society has always we can talk about the Romans, we can see all the athletic bills, athletic pictures, the paintings all over the museums and everywhere, and that it just sets an example. It just sets an expectation for a man, for a young boy to be athletic. He has to like sports because if you don't like a sport, nobody is going to consider you manly. You come off as a very feminine guy, and society does not like that, and it is creating a very toxic mindset. So while sports can provide valuable lessons such as teamwork, hard work, resilience, about never giving up, it also risks promoting toxic masculinity. To be specific, toxic hegemonic masculinity, as it can have detrimental effects on young minds. Because men from young age are frequently told not to be vulnerable, which can result in rigid understanding of the hegemonic masculinity, and it discourages showing emotions and being true. It suppresses the anger, the resilience, and everything, and makes a man more arrogant, more dominant, Uh, so, yeah, sports, how it views and how we view masculinity, sports can have a very huge impact in it. So it has an important role. Um, so all through their life, men are told to act like a man, always being told to act like a man. When our individuality and expressions of our own identity, of our own gender identity, are constantly judged, is constantly made fun of, compared and criticized. Oh, look at him. He is strong, athletic, he has power, he is the captain of the basketball team. He is a man. You might get straight A's, but you are not athletic. I have seen you cry. You are not a man. This creates the toxic, very toxic um, environment for men to develop and grow in, to nurture themselves. And it is not uncommon to develop lack of confidence or even fear of society if society is always judging uh, an individual for, practicing their manhood in a certain way, showing their manhood in a certainly different way from what they have set as a rigid definition of masculinity. So, because they want to be a real man and be looked up by everyone else, sometimes young boys, in high school, even men fall in this peer pressure. They start smoking, they start doing drugs, and they lose control of their lives trying to fit in, be a man, have friends, and it ruins their lives. And this course has precisely taught me this in a deep level and has made me more conscious of the men around me. And I do not want to be one of those people, because I do not want to feel any man around me feel like they have to prove themselves to be a man for themselves to exist. And uh, so the other thing is the looking glass. You know, it relates with act like a man box a lot, because if a man is not aggressive, if a man is not rich, if a man is not dominant, is not brave, does not have power, does not get girls, he is not a man. He is outside of the act like a man box, and people call him all sorts of names like a wuss, a wussy, a bitch, a girl, sissy, femboy, whatnot. And while discussing while discussing this in the class during our lecture, it was more fun because we heard the bad words and all, but um, people, my classmates from all parts of the world, they were bringing in words I had never heard before, their meanings, and those are the words people in their country call a man who does not fit in the act like a man box. It was funny, it was sad, but mostly the class was very productive. And I have, from my personal experience, I have a 3-year-old cousin brother, and I have heard my grandparents tell him when he starts crying over certain things, when he throws tantrums, I've heard them say it to him. They're like, "Oh, you cannot be crying. You are, you are making me ashamed. You are not a little girl to be crying." And now I know my limits. I know there are certain things we cannot change, even as a new generation. For the past generations, what we cannot change in them is their beliefs, the norms, the gender construct, and everything they grew up with, because it is deeply carved. It's deeply carved in their minds, and it is never going to change. But what we can change to be better, to give the new generation of men, young boys, a better life, more free life, is being open ourselves. I Whenever I'm with my little brother, I always encourage him to do the things he likes. I let him cry. I'm always, giving him affirmative words, compliments, because I do not want him to be growing up as a man around me, what I've seen around me, all those arrogant, dominant, pushy men. I want him to be a good citizen. I want him to be true to himself. I want him to be free to express himself and his masculinity however he wants. And I hope we all can work on it so the future generation has a better life. So, talking back to the topic, the looking glass. It is so how do my parents see me? They see me as an angel. How does my girlfriend or my partner sees me? they see me as a strong person. How does my older brother slash my sibling sees me? Uh, in the mirror, we can see as a weak person, and it's definitely sarcasm. So how does my ex-partner sees me? As a devil, as evil, because that's their perspective of me. So the looking glass self is a social psychological theory, which was created by sociologist Charles Horton Cooley in 1902, that explains how people develop their sense of self based on how they perceive others view them. So it's the idea. The idea is I look in the mirror, I judge myself, I see myself as how others see me. I try to be that person, and then I judge myself based on the fake perspective of the second person that I've made of myself. Which is not the real me, but the person, the me that I am in the eyes of other people around me. And this is a major problem with most of the men in the society, since they're expected to be a real man since day one, and keeping up with all the expectations can lead them towards self-degradation, self-consciousness, and wrong anticipation, sometimes leading them in wrong works, wrongdoings. And in the part two of learning via films, among the many films we watched, many films and documentaries that we watched in class, the other one that very much piqued my interest in knowledge was The Mask You Live In. It is a documentary directed by Jennifer Sibel Newsom that looks at the expectations and duties created by society that they put on young men to fit in the particular definition of masculinity, because according to society, there is a fixed, rigid, very monotonous definition of masculinity. What does it mean to be like a man? They have their own, the society has its own definition, and anything out of that sentence, out of the box, is not considered manly. That's how it is. The documentary highlights how these rigid stereotypes, can lead the younger boys and even grown men to have serious issues, serious mental health problems. It can lead them to depression, self-consciousness, self-degradation, and they isolate themselves from everybody. They cannot express themselves. That's not how one grows. And which is the exact reason why there are still so many potential young men of any age out there who can do so much, but they do not want to be seen by the society as their true selves, and it is absolutely pushing them back. Um, so yeah, we need to have a better judgment of how our words, how our judgment as society can, you know, better or ruin somebody's life. Um, so, and throughout the course, while we were studying, doing various exercises, the one that was the most fun for me to do was the growing up gendered exercise. So the growing up gendered exercise, it provided an opportunity for me to reflect on my upbringing and how parental roles and societal norms influence gender expectations. So as I mentioned before, I come from Nepal, a country ruled by patriarchy. I do not hate I do not hate men, but I absolutely hate the bias of patriarchy in my country. So my parents, they have two kids. It's me and my younger sister. So in my country, if you do not have a son, people have the society has this concept, this perspective that if you do not have a son, you will not make it to the gates of heaven. You are going to hell. So every time we were introduced to to a new family, to new neighbors in our society, the frequent questions, the most asked questions would be, "Oh, how many siblings are you?" And every time I'd tell them, "Oh, it's just two of us, me and my sister," and they'll be, "Oh, you don't have a brother?" And they will look you dead in the eyes and be like, "Oh, you poor thing. it is very much normalized to pity on people who do not have sons. So for my parents, and I'm very much fortunate. I thank my parents every time I have the chance to. I'm very much grateful for my parents because they are educated. And in my country, in the remote areas, not everybody has the privilege to have a proper education, And sometimes, not sometimes, but most of the times, very educational people who have their master's degree, who have achieved their PhD, are very conservative. They're like, oh, you need to have a son. You need to have a son because and my community, my culture, that is about my country and about my culture. Um, the family tree. Mm, the family tree. We have the word we have for it is Bangshawali in Nepali. The language, my mother tongue. So it's the family tree. They write your children, the history, the ancestry, everything. So one it is one of the things that makes me very sad and mad at the same time. So I'm very angry when I think about it, but it makes me very sad when I think about it too. So the thing is, if if my s- because my dad had two daughters, he didn't choose to have a son. So his his bloodline is ended. He has ended his bloodline. So the family tree will not show me and my sister. So it's basically that he's childless, which is false because I'm alive. Um, but that is how much normal it is in the society, the patriarchy, Um, the patriarchy. So growing up was very fun. Growing up in that environment, that place was very fun. But I'm very grateful for my parents because they were both educated. And growing up, they had both of them had jobs. They're still working. My dad works as in corporate office in the salt trading corporation, and my mom is working as an admin officer, a corporate job for this resource organization for the environment and sustainability. I'm proud of both of them and mostly the way I was raised. So growing up, my mom and dad had their chores divided. So my mom would do the cooking. My mom would do the cooking and laundry because she was good at it. Don't get me wrong, but my dad tried his best, but it wasn't the best lunch, the best meal whenever he would cook. So mom took up on the job, and dad would dad would do the cleaning, fixing things around the house and just catching up with the neighbors and everything, teaching us how to do things. And it was my mom who taught me how to ride a bicycle. If you talk about gender roles, it was supposed to be my dad, but my mom was better at it. My mom taught it first, so it doesn't matter. So both of them, I grew up watching them work at office, work in home together. Whenever my mom was busy, my dad would take up on the cooking job. Whenever my mom was free, she would help my dad around the house, clean, um, he would teach her how to fix things and everything. So I grew up in harmony. I have seen that gender does not have um, a, a role. The roles in society in a family should not have a gender. A work doesn't have a gender, so a gender shouldn't have a rule. So that's what I learned from growing up as a daughter of both working parents, who provided me with a loving and caring environment. And so these subjects and this exercise actually made me realize how lucky I am because I never reflected on such small things, the details that would teach me so much, a lot. So however, analyzing these subjects during lecture, I realized that masculinity and femininity are created through socializations, and with boys frequently enduring greater gender policing than girls. And yeah, so to conclude, um, there were a lot of facts and informations throughout the class, all the lectures that were very educational, that struck the chord for me. But of the most powerful quote that came throughout the class, and it absolutely moved me, it changed all the perspective of masculinities, gender norms, and everything for me, is um, it goes like this. So, gender is one big school with a broad curriculum. There is so much we learn from so many teachers, you will never graduate from gender schools. And this analogy successfully gives the flexibility, all the message of gender, successfully conveying the flexibility of gender. Learning and its long lasting effect on identity, how it helps a person identify and, exist in the society, performing their gender norms, performing their own gender, how they feel like it. And yeah, it was great. This quote is just very powerful, and I believe it should be out there more. More people need to learn about it. More people need to have this opportunity to so thoroughly understand gender, gender norms, masculinity. So all the pressure on men and people who do not conform their gender do not have to hide from the society and can be freely themselves. And lastly, thank you so much for this amazing course, for this journey throughout the class. I'm very grateful, Mr. Clayton. It was a great class, and yeah, thank you so much.